I woke up this morning at peace. And that's not how I went to bed. I went to bed filled with frustration. Frustration at my job. Frustration at my circumstance, which I recognized was based off of choices I had been making. So I went to sleep frustrated with myself, knowing good and well that I am the creator of my reality, and being annoyed that this would be the reality I created. It is very frustrating to be an unlimited being who keeps having to remind themselves of such. And yet that is what I am, that is what you are, that is what we are tasked to do. I can't say that frustration always shows itself the same way for me. Frustration sometimes shows up as boredom, anxiety. Sometimes frustration shows up as me bursting into tears because there's so much that I feel like I should be doing, could be doing, but that I don't understand why there's an energy block towards the movement, the momentum of doing it. I consider myself all that I need, so it makes sense that I would be particularly offended when it feels like I'm holding out on me. The human experience. Our bodies are meant to help us navigate this very physical realm. And so it picks up experience. Our minds are meant to help us learn how to navigate, like understand the pattern of if I do this, this is the cause and the effect. And so we call that knowledge. But what is an invaluable resource? It's the fact that we each have wisdom. Now, the wisdom is going to be based a lot off of how quiet you are and how much you can listen, because wisdom does not yell. I like to imagine that God, the universe, crafted my voice with wisdom in mind, long before I had actually tapped into some of this wisdom. I think it was decided that if I lull people into a quiet place, maybe my voice at that point won't even matter, and your own wisdom's voice can croon through. That's what I want for each of us. But I know as people, sometimes we have to see it outside of ourselves to even know what we're looking for inside of ourselves. And that's okay. That's beautiful. We just have to remember to look back inside for the things we learned about outside. I love loving on people, but I'm aware sometimes I do it from the wrong place. I love celebrating myself, and I'm aware that I don't do it enough. There are things that we can be completely aware of and actively choose not to change. That can be because of the human experience most of the time, and not because of wisdom. Wisdom would have you recognize yourself as fitting in no box, obligated to nothing but a practice that serves you, fills you, shines a light so that other people can recognize their own practice to serve and fill themselves. That is wisdom. Any label that we are applying to ourselves as we wait to become wise, that falls in the knowledge bucket because it helps us learn cause and effect. While I value knowledge, I am very interested in getting out of my mind, in fact, losing my mind, to find myself. The self that is spelled with capital SELF, not the lowercase self that's at the end of my. Because I don't even feel like I own me. I get the beautiful opportunity to live as this energetic source. But all the things that I would put my in front of are surface. And the self that I speak of, ain't nothing surface about it. So I want to gain more self. And I'm interested in quieting, because I don't necessarily expect to silence my mind. It is a tool that I have spent 28 years cultivating, asking for it to send me signals when it has ideas. And only half of those 28 years have I been meditating. It comes down to having enough quiet moments with wisdom to begin to trust you can doubt what your mind tells you. Without wisdom, you really are just left to the confines of your mind. The limited, fearful, doubtful confines of your mind. You are left to simply live in that body, in that skull. And I be damned if that's the life I live. So when it gets loud in my head, and it does, those nights I go to sleep frustrated, I remember that I don't have to silence the chaos. I just need to observe it and see self outside of it. The fact that I can identify that sometimes my mind goes apeshit, that's the very thing that reminds me that I am not my mind. Because who is aware that the mind is going apeshit? Who's watching it do it? The self. And the self isn't offended. The self isn't frustrated. The self isn't embarrassed or disappointed that we're doing that human thing again where we forget that we're more than. I almost want to say that the self is probably a little fascinated, but even that personifies the self, and the self ain't a person. The self is not something we can fathom with human emotions and experiences. The self does not want to punish. The self is quite open to all the different paths, because all paths lead back to the self. You could ruin your life by knowledge-based standards, by human experience standards. And at the end of that ruined physical experience, you will still be welcomed back to the self. Wisdom will still take everything it can from the experiences you had to teach you what you will let it. But you are never without the self. We so desperately want to understand what the self is, so that we can decide if it's worth really doubting all these physical things that surround us. But you can never quantify what you will gain through change and through evolution. You can quantify what you'll lose, and your mind will amplify that thought. It will bring up things that likely won't even happen just to make sure you know you could lose something. What type of bullshit lie? I could lose something? And who said losing some of these things was a bad thing? Who said that when I open my tight, closed fist, who said that I would regret that? Fear taught me to keep my fist tight. Rejection. Other wounded people who had not learned the power of an open palm for the purpose of not just giving or being taken advantage of, but because we are so deserving of receiving. And we forget so often how worthy we are. And I know we forget. I am not outside of you as a human being who sometimes forgets that the things that I deeply desire, they already belong to me. They already exist in my realm. And it is only my observation of being apart from them that causes this ache, this wound, this embarrassment, this frustration. It is all about perception. I've been on a tip for the past couple months as I continue to grow and realize that I am not the woman I was, I'm not the girl that I was, that those evolutions of me have come and they have gone, they have passed away. I recognize through all of this growth that the only thing constant is the self, an unidentifiable energy that is more me than I am. And I recognize it is scary to put all your eggs in a basket that is unidentifiable. But is what you've been identifying as and with that great? Really, is it that great? Could there not be something greater that your limited human brain has not thought of? Because I have always had an active imagination, but I never knew my life could be this sweet. And that is the duality of being a human being. You can go to sleep frustrated at yourself for the reality you've created. You can go to sleep praying for help, for peace. And when you get out of your own way by shutting your mind off, energetically these things work out. I went to bed in tears. And while this morning I am in tears again, it is for the most glorious reasons. I woke up to peace. A peace that I could not have fathomed last night. Something coached me. Someone coached me. The self coached me, guided me. And when it brought me back to a conscious state this morning, I knew I was different. I did not feel empty. I woke up feeling full. I was aware that I was a human and a person. But there was a love. There was a clarity. There was an energy, there was a direction, there was a strength, there was a community, there was a discernment in me that answered my prayers. I am all things. You are all things. There is a duality that exists within us that we have to not resist. I give so much thanks for nights that I cry myself to sleep because of frustration, because of the liberation it gives me the opportunity to wake up into. So when shit seems fucked up, get excited, my friends. We look around and see how fucked up things look right now. Let the human part of you be worried. Let it gather the experience. Let it connect the dots of knowledge from one limited human brain to another. You might cry yourself to sleep, but ask for help and expect to find it. Better yet, expect it to find you. And then let go. Let go of what you're holding on to. Let go of the weight of it all. Let go. Because you are not this surface shit. You are more than.